Today we're going to talk about the chapter Reincarnation. Mr. Sumati?
Yes. Om Agasthyar Namaha. Reincarnation. Anuradha again asks another question. My Guru says reincarnation is not compulsory. And here her Guru is Yogananda. So Sage Agastya says, your Guru is talking from a higher plane. It does not apply to everyone. A Guru gives you a vehicle and a driver, but you need a ticket to buy a ticket. To buy a ticket, you need money. What is money? The money is the accumulated good samskaras in you. Without a proper samskara, which is the foundation, it is difficult to attain the ultimate goal. However, every person is encouraged to go ahead. That is what your Guru is saying. Psychologically, he is assuring you so that you can develop faith. This assurance is for those who do not have faith in themselves in the initial stages.
Now, once again, there are many things we can understand just from these two paragraphs. But before we go forward, I need to clarify this for people who have not read all the books which explain how Vazhipaadu has happened. When Agastya was talking to us, and my father, Gajraj Swamikar, was his disciple, I had already started on the path of self-realization through Paramahamsa Yogananda. And he always said, I am not your guru. Paramahamsa Yogananda is your guru. So even though I had a different guru, it was absolutely okay for all of us to have different gurus. My mother had Babuji as a guru from Sahajamarg. And so it was okay for all of us to still worship and follow Agastya. Because ultimately, he said during the giving of Vazhipaadu, all the lines will merge towards me, which is him. So, where Yogananda's lineage, Mahavadar Babaji is the main guru for us. He is our Paramaguru. But he himself, was Agastya's disciple. So was my mother's guru Babuji of Sahajamarg. That lineage also talks about Agastya in a particular way. I am not too sure exactly how it connects, but I know that there is a book where they talk about Agastya. So it all appears to be like the seven Maharishis were the main ones, and through them all the others have come forward, all the different lineages, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who we see as guru. We can follow the Guru's teaching, but we can learn from Agastya. There is no conflict there. And that is something I wanted to make sure everybody knows. There is no conflict in reading from other gurus, understanding and knowledge from other gurus, but following the path of just the guru that has accepted you as a disciple, which means we do the practices that we need to do, the techniques that our guru has taught us. But knowledge can come to us from different sides. So we should not always, become too engrossed in only one or limited in one path. Vedas say, let knowledge come to us from all sides, because ultimately, whether we follow different gurus, whether we follow different paths, whether it's Bhakti Marga, Karma Yoga, Kriya Yoga, or whether we are from different religions, which don't even have, like any kind of a commonality in terms of the deities we worship, we must understand there is only one creator, there's only one absolute. And all the religions are based on the main factor of love and human values, righteousness. There is a commonality in everything. It's just that just as there are different people in the world with different needs, different religions, different gurus cater to the consciousness that we have, the level of frequency that is in us. But ultimately, there is no distinction whether that is what actually Hinduism talks about. It doesn't matter whether you consider a stone a god, a tree a god, or another person a god. Everywhere, everything is God. So there's another thing here is a lot of people talk about. Oh, Hindus, worship a million gods. It's not about that. Whichever god you worship, everything ultimately we understand that the source is Parabrahman, the absolute, who is also the same source, whether you're a Christian or a Muslim or Jew or even an atheist. Without that Parabrahman or absolute, none of us would even exist. So that was just something that I wanted to clarify. Now, Agastya is saying, you know, that reincarnation is not compulsory. Those words that Paramahamsa Yogananda has said in one of his books, he says it does not apply to everyone. We must understand this. There are cycles of creation. The 4 yugas, as we talk about in Hinduism, is a period of 24,000 years each. And once the yuga is completed, there is a destruction. So all the souls that are living during this particular creation cycle, only those who are able to liberate themselves and return to Parabrahma do not have to come back. Because once the destruction happens, all those who have not attained liberation will come back to start everything all over again. Which means we will go through suffering, we'll go through pain, and all the stuff that we are going through each day. So that is what, but there's another side to this. Reincarnation is not compulsory for those who have already understood through Jnana Yoga or through their penance what all this is about, what creation is about. Once you understand that, then you can continue to work on a higher plane. So you will read in Vazhipaadu that even gods that we pray to had to come to earth as human beings, attain that divine aspect, and go to the higher plane, which is one of the lokas. And again, that is a different frequency. And they remain there in that particular frequency until the end of destruction of the world to continue to help us. It's a great sacrifice that the Munis and the gods have done to help humanity. They could all return to the absolute the moment they want, but Munis choose not to, and gods, because they've chosen to be gods, are bound by duty. This is something you're going to learn as we read Vazhipaadu. So that is why reincarnation is not compulsory, but then it's not for everyone. Go ahead, Sister Sue.
Okay. So to continue, let us assume that he says it is difficult to attain the goal and you have to work hard. Then the question would be whether the devotee has the strength or not. Do you see the intention of your guru? He says you have enough money to buy the ticket. There are two things to consider here. You already have some money in the bank to buy the ticket, one. And second, in the other case, you have to earn the money to buy the ticket. So Anuradha asks, how will I know which one it is?
So now we will go to this particular paragraph. Any thoughts, anybody on this? Okay. So basically he's asked, what does Appa mean when he says ticket? He's talking about samskara. What does that mean? A life of righteousness, a foundation of good things, good karma. It's so important if we want to walk on the spiritual path, because without that, you will see a lot of people around us who have no inclination, absolutely no inclination to go on the spiritual path. They have no idea, they refuse to even look at this path or understand what it is. That's because they do not have the samskara. They do not have enough good deeds, enough inclination towards the good to walk on that path. So that is what he says when he says, do you have money in the bank? Have you built up enough good deeds and good karma to be able to start ascending to a higher frequency, which is what we're going to do as we meditate. So the ticket is the path to liberation, the initiation, not the initiation, but a guidance of a guru to go towards liberation. So in most cases, there's people who are not inclined, who do not even want to think about this, who are still steeped in the world of material necessities and the good and bad and suffering and joy. They do not have enough money in their bank. They do not have enough samskara in the bank to buy the ticket of a guru's blessings or guidance to go on the path of spirituality.
So Sage Agastya says, once again, like our friend Mahadevappa sitting here, the very fact you have asked such a question shows doubt in yourself. That is not good. If you have enough money and you know you have it, then would you ask your guru this question? You wouldn't, because you are sure.
That is so true. And all of us, I think this Vazhipaadu, the giving of Vazhipaadu itself has been, has a lot of layers of lessons. So through us who were fortunate enough to be there when it was being given, he's giving examples to the world. He's telling people who are inclined to go on the spiritual path or who are already on the spiritual path, do not doubt yourself. You wouldn't be on the spiritual path. You wouldn't have this inclination to go on the spiritual path if you didn't have the money, the samskara. So through me, that was the lesson he's giving to all of you, because I too went through that doubt. And he's saying, you're already on the path. So why do you doubt yourself? You already had the money. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on the path. So Vazhipaadu, the giving of the Vazhipaadu has a lot of lessons in itself. So we will be talking about it as we go along. Now, I would like to open it up for discussion. Dr. Sudhamani, Sister Sumati, Mr. Geeta, any thing that you would like to add or your thoughts on this?
Thanks, Akka. Basically, I was just thinking how fortunate we are that we always think of the goal as something like moksha or something, but it is such a nice thing just to be on the path. That itself is a blessing.
Absolutely.
And there is nothing like goal.
Absolutely. Actually, if you must know, spirituality is every step, every moment, every breath. And that itself is great, because whether we know it or not, all of us are progressing just by the fact that we are think about it. There's 100% of the people in the world. 25% have no idea about spirituality. Welcome, Brother Karpan. Wonderful to see you here. So 25% have absolutely no idea. They are caught in the web of samsara. They're just waking up every day, going through the motions. They don't even want to acknowledge God. Then there's another 25% who know that there is a God, and they are trying to live their life, trying to do good and bad, and praying. Then there is another 20% who know that there is God, and they also know that there's something more to life than just waking up or being born, going to school, getting married, having children, working, and then dying. And those are the people who are searching. So they're already better than the other 50% in the world. But blessed are those who are already on the path, who have said, there is something more. I want to know it. I'm going to go on the path, and who have been blessed to get a guru, because we don't find a guru, the guru finds us only when we are ready. So just to be on the path is a great blessing. You're absolutely right, Dr. Sudha. Brother Karpan Swami, we were talking about reincarnation and why, it is not compulsory for some people, but why we are all so blessed to be able to be on the path of spirituality. If you have any
Thank
thoughts on that, you're most welcome to share.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, sister.
Yeah,
Sorry to join late. Yeah, thank you.
it's all right. No worries. But it was a wonderful thing. But we'll continue with the Bhagavad Gita. Sister Sumati, any more thoughts from you?
I agree with Sudhamani, doctor, saying that, yeah, we should, it's an enjoyable process. I mean, it gives you a nice feeling of being on the journey. As they say, destination is your goal. I mean, your goal is important to be focused, but don't forget what you learn along the way. So, yeah, I totally agree with her.
Beautiful. Sister Geeta, any thoughts or shall we go on?
Okay.
Okay, so we begin with Bhagavad Gita. Addressing Lord Krishna, Gajraj Swamigal prayed, Vande Krishnam, Vande Jagadguru, Vande Sakshat Parabrahma Rupam. Thou art the greatest Guru of all. Thou art the greatest yogi of all. Thou art the sun who clears the cloud of ignorance and gives right knowledge to those in need. To thy feet I surrender my salutations. It is you who gave the common man of those days meaning in life. Thou art the charioteer in the chariot of righteousness, leading the mind with the righteous message in Kurukshetra, which is nothing more than the conflicting battlefield of the human mind. Please give us the inner meaning of your message to us. So, Sage Agastya says, Maharishi Vyasa wrote the Mahabharata as a complete book of knowledge for the human race. The entire picture of the Bhagavad Gita came to him as intuition from the Supreme God. That is why it is regarded as the most sacred treatise of all times.
Okay,
The knowledge of,
because this is what we need to talk about. One of the things in a very basic level, Mahabharata is one of the epics which touches on almost every aspect of human life. So when we are facing challenges in a life, we don't have to look further than our epics and our Puranas to understand how we need to meet those challenges or face those challenges and how to conduct ourselves in life. Now, again, why is Bhagavad Gita so important? And in that one line, he says, it came to him as an intuition from the Supreme God. Now, Agastya, in one of the chapters on knowledge, has said, wisdom or knowledge is the very essence of Parabrahma. It is all around us. It is permeated in the world. And if you can actually connect to that higher knowledge, to that higher consciousness, again, we're talking about frequency, then we can get the pure knowledge and it starts coming up from within us and we can bring it out to the world. And that's exactly what Maharishi Vyasa did. He was able to connect to the highest knowledge and bring out the essence of entire creation, life, what every single thing is all about. It is very much in detail. I read the Bhagavad Gita often, and it has every answer for everything, every question you could possibly have in normal life, or in spiritual life, or in understanding creation. So we have to understand the importance of the Bhagavad Gita and Mahabharata as we hear what Agastya is going to say.
Yeah. So the knowledge of Parabrahman is unlimited. Having created the universe and humans, Parabrahman wanted them to lead a righteous life. When things went wrong, when unrighteousness was gaining the upper hand, it was left to the great rishis to correct the world through this knowledge. Each person who reads or hears the content of the Mahabharata understands it in his own capacity. I'm going to analyze and tell you how the Mahabharata has been understood and visualized in different ways by different persons in different contexts. So the first understanding is when a common man with an average level of intelligence hears the story. It remains just as an interesting narration and nothing more. That is how even today Mahabharata is seen only as a story in some places. To such people, the day-to-day events in the Kurukshetra battlefield are nothing more than fiction. They are more interested in knowing what will happen next. Only the characters involved in the story and their deeds remain in their minds, nothing more. Depending on the nature of the person who hears the story, they take sides. Some consider Arjuna the hero, someone else Bhima, and still others Karna and other characters. Such people do not derive the benefit of the real meaning of the Mahabharata. However, since the story is interesting, they hear it again and again. This is the greatness of Mahabharata. No one ever gets tired of hearing it, irrespective of age or level of education.
And that is something true of most of the spiritual books, including Agasthiyar Vazhipaadu. I have probably read it hundreds of times. And each time we read it, a new layer of meaning, comes to the fore. It is never boring. You can read a novel, read it maybe 2 times, 3 times, and after a while it gets boring because you know every word. But these are living energies. What we read in the Vedas, whatever has been received by the great rishis and given to us, or the great souls and given to us, has energy in it. So these are not just books. These are not just stories. Their energy is flowing through it. So that is why when we take a book like Vazhipaadu and hold it in our hands, we must understand that is Appa Agastya is right there. His energy is in there. It is connecting up to us. The more we read those books, the more we get connected to the energy. So that is why we call these sacred books. And here, what is interesting is Appa is talking about how people look at Mahabharata, depending on their own level of understanding. So as we understand, the capacity of the cup determines how much water it can hold. The shallower it is, the less it can hold. And usually some of the people who don't know anything about all this just enjoy the story. But even that is good, he says.
Yeah, the second type of people are humans endowed with a discriminatory mind. In some people, there exists a strong distinction between right and wrong, virtues and sins, righteousness and unrighteousness. When they read or hear the Mahabharata, the characters in the story become secondary. However, their deeds become more important. Throughout the story, their minds follow the path of the actions and constantly focus on the good and bad actions of the characters. Yet, even to these people, Mahabharata remains a story, but with a message of triumph over good, of good over evil. Depending on their inclination, they identify with the virtuous acts or wrongful deeds of the characters in Mahabharata. It is this discriminatory tendency that makes them identify with the Pandavas as the embodiment of virtue and the Kauravas as a group of sinful people. Such people focus on identifying the warriors and weigh them against each other so that they can arrange them on the scale of virtuous acts. In the same way, they weigh the characters among the Kauravas on the scale of sinful acts. I would like to take a little more time to bring your attention to the leaders who are arranged on the scale of virtue and sin in the Mahabharata. If you look at the spectrum, there is a clear consideration of Pandavas as virtuous and Kauravas as sinful. Let us examine the personalities of those who stand out as virtuous. If you make a list of the characters and ask another person to arrange these virtuous men in the order of merit, you will find many variations. Some of the names classified under virtuous characters are Bhishma, Drona, Yudhishthira, and Karna. Now, where would you place the main hero Arjuna? You could also discuss the merits of Duryodhana, the chief of the Kauravas, in this light. Among the list of unrighteous, we have Shakuni, Duryodhana again, Dushasana, and others. Many authors have written volumes on the arguments of who among them is the most virtuous. The most controversial of characters you may find is Karna. Hence, historically speaking, Karna is the central figure of the entire process of the war of righteousness.
Yeah, any thoughts on this, anybody? Actually, this particular paragraph is very self-explanatory. You know, he's talking about the next set of people who are more interested in looking at what is righteous, what is unrighteous. Oh, this person was wrong, he did this wrong. How many of us are like that in real life? Most of us are, even at
Most
least
of us
to
are.
a small extent. Even to a small extent. So maybe there's one thing that we can take away from this for ourselves is maybe it is time not to do that. Maybe it's time not to judge people. I am very guilty of doing that. Because what happens is when we start judging people, that see where our mind is, there our consciousness is. So why waste a consciousness on things that do not matter on the path of spirituality? So this is something I have to keep reminding myself because I get angry. Oh, this person did something wrong. I'm like, no. Then I sit back and reflect, no, why? Why am I wasting time thinking about this? Because we have very less time to get out of this cycle of birth and death. Why do we waste looking at what others do? Because each person has his own path. Each person has to go forward on his own path through his own actions, through the bad and good that he does. It is not for us to judge them because we have to look at ourselves and look at what we need to change. So that is one of the things that we can learn from this. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the third type of people is now discussed. Both the above classes of people look at the outer layer of the story. It is like a bird's eye view. Now let us examine the more serious inner meaning of Mahabharata. We see on one plane, it is a war between two sets of brothers establishing the rights to a kingdom. But the inner meaning is the establishment of righteousness for which this war was waged. Each episode of Mahabharata reveals actual situations that people face at certain times in their lives. When a situation creates indecision in a person's mind, he can look for a solution in the small episodes or events within the story of the Mahabharata. Here, the person is drawn into the realm of right and wrong. The entire analysis of the Kurukshetra war affords instances of how to tackle a difficult, conflicting, and confusing situation. That is why Arjuna was placed in such a predicament in the beginning of the war. Here, Arjuna refers to the Manas. The battlefield refers to the situation, and the teaching of Lord Krishna refers to the solution. In this context, the story is more value-based than event-based. So for such people, Mahabharata is not a story, it is a solution. It helps a person tread the path of righteousness and choose between right and wrong.
And exactly the same thing we have already just discussed. And I think I went a little ahead in talking about it. But that's what it is. Finally, we can, if we are fortunate enough to have heard the epics and the Puranas, then we don't have to go look for online, solutions to our problems because it's all here. Everything we need has been given to us. We just have to go back and look at our own cultural treasures that have been handed over and understand how to lead life. One of the reasons many of us in the olden days walked on the path of righteousness is because of our parents and grandparents told us stories. They told us stories which had morals in them, which helped us understand, okay, these actions are not righteous, so these are the actions we have to do. See, children can be inspired by stories. And that is so important in the current life because we can lay a foundation of good and proper and righteous path in the heart and mind of children who are very receptive through stories, because once we do that, they, when they grow up, will be good citizens of the world, will walk on the righteous path, and they'll continue this tradition. But that is now lost. What is happening? Most of the children are looking at the TV, and what does the TV show? The TV shows violence, it shows physical sexual activities, which are not good. This is what we are filling our children's mind with. So the tradition of telling stories which have a moral in them, and idealism in them, which great epics like this, we need to regain the tradition of that storytelling. It is so important in this world. Go ahead, sister.
Yeah. So the fourth category, in the fourth category, we can look at Mahabharata as a compendium dealing with various rules. In fact, one can regard Mahabharata as containing the ultimate knowledge on the human level. In it, you find science of living, science of politics and economics, science of warfare, science of sexuality, compendium of ethics or right policy, and also the duties of king, people, guru, disciple, brothers, friends, and enemies. So, Mahabharata was meant to be a concise, wholesome, easily understandable, easily followed piece of righteous knowledge for all types of people. Shall I continue?
Yes, it's quite self-explanatory, and we're almost running out of time.
Yeah. So the last group is the fifth group. Each person understands a certain aspect of each event in the story. Your, that is Anuradha, Guru Yogananda's approach is different from others. It is just like a few people looking at a lotus flower. One sees its color, another its shape, another tries to determine why it floats on water, another compares its beauty against some other value. In one of my interactions, I have given the example of lotus for emotions. That was my angle at that time. A passing cow will simply regard it as a nasty morsel, a tasty morsel, sorry. A passing cow will simply regard it as a tasty morsel.
So
This is how I want you. Yeah.
Sorry, this is the beauty of Agathiyar Vazhipaadu. Appa Agastya, he talks about all these profound things, and then he's very, very, very down to earth, and he says, but look at a cow, it'll just come and eat the lotus blossom. So, Vazhipaadu is beautiful in this way because it gives us the greatest of knowledge, and it also is very practical and down to earth. But what he's saying again here is, everybody looks at everything based on their own experience and perception. So how we accept something depends on our perception, our receptiveness, and our own experiences. So spirituality, there is no blanket way or method for spirituality. It is very individual. And Vazhipaadu actually helps you do that, because there, as you follow Vazhipaadu, it becomes your own individual journey. There are no strict rules. You have to do this, you have to do this. There's nothing like that in Vazhipaadu. Vazhipaadu then becomes like a textbook. It's a textbook for not only practitioners, it's a textbook for masters who can also share it with others. Now we'll stop at this because this chapter goes on and we have more to discuss. But before we end, if there's more thoughts from any of you on all that we've talked about, you're most welcome to share.
Yeah, in fact, indeed, sister, I'm Sami here. And yeah, the whole chapter, quite interesting, is that it is actually a value-based and event-based. And I think that is very powerful point Appa Agasthyar mentioned. Because if you look at the thing that Mahabharata is actually how one should not live. and Ramayana, how one should live. And that actually leads to the moral ethical code in the living, and avoid angry and full of devotion, the thought of Dharma. And that is, I think, the highest part of value in those Puranas, I think. And one should not, should live in along with the code of ethics that highlighted by Appa in Agasthiyar Vazhipaadu. And that's my input, sister. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, brother. You're so right. We can learn a lot from reading these or hearing these stories, because they talk about, if you take Yudhishthira, for example, he had the virtue of never telling a lie. And
Yes.
that is very hard. It's very hard in the think about how all the times that we tell lies, simple white lies. So yeah, there's so much to learn. There's so much to improve as we read and understand the characters of Mahabharata and Ramayana. Anybody else?
Akka, I would just like to add, the beauty of Mahabharata is what I like is there is no simple differentiation between white and black there. All characters are like shades of gray. And Lord Krishna himself tells Yudhishthira to tell the lie for the sake of preserving Dharma. And then you suddenly feel that, Arre, this is all told by Lord Krishna himself. And then that itself shows that Dharma is supreme. It is not a question of telling lie or what is right and what is wrong. Actually, in a normal sense, is all completely given a different meaning by Lord Krishna. That's the beauty of Mahabharata.
Beautiful. And so with this, we have to end because we have less than a minute. This is something we could discuss more, but we will do that next week. Thank you all for joining us, and let us reflect on this as we meditate today. And as usual, please sit straight and focus on the Kutastha. And thank you everybody for coming. And I'll leave you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we will do the Tamil reading. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.